Luke tells us of the time when Jesus was approached by some people who questioned him regarding what happened to the Galileans that King Herod had slaughtered and then had their blood mingled with the sacrifice. They wondered whether those Galileans had committed greater sins, thus their death was far worse than others. Jesus looked at them and said, "Do you remember the time that the tower at Siloam collapsed, and 18 citizens of Jerusalem were crushed to death? Do you think their sins were worse than others of Jerusalem?" Then he told them a parable. A landowner had a fig tree, and when he went by the one day and looked at his fig tree, he noticed there were no figs on it. He called for his gardener, and he said, "Cut this tree down that is simply taking up space." The gardener said, "But wait. Let me have the opportunity to put fertilizer on it, to tend to it and care for it. Give it a year and see if it will produce fruit then." Well, Cindy's not here, so I can tell this story. It'll get changed for 10:30, don't worry. We're two different types of personalities, if you hadn't noticed, particularly for things like when we travel. Now, Cindy's wants to know exactly where we're going, when we're getting there, what we're doing, the exact route, and all those kinds of things. I'm a little more throw caution to the wind kind of person. So our first trip to Ireland years ago, I was spearheading this throw caution to the wind kind of campaign, and we were going on this fly drive tour. The tour company, would provide the airline travel there and back, and you arrive and they hand you a rental car and vouchers for bed and breakfasts all over Ireland. And, we knew the places we wanted to go, and so I thought this was a great opportunity. We get there, we could, change our plans last minute, depending upon things. She, oddly enough, felt that if we were going to some foreign country, that she would at least want to know where our first night we were staying, and it was booked. Crazy woman. But we did have a couple of things we agreed upon. We wanted to stay off the major highways. We wanted the smallest back roads possible. And so, and we had to go to Waterford Crystal and also to Guinness. You can figure out who wanted which one. And when we arrived in Dublin and got our rental car, we had already booked. I gave in, and the first night we were staying at a bed and breakfast in Greystones down along the coast. Rest of them we were kind of up in the air. Guinness Brewery was easy to find because it's the tallest structure in all of Ireland, right in the center of Dublin. And you just there it is, and you wend your way and you get to it. Well, then we knew we were heading south to Greystones, and we wanted to, this was a paper map era. There was no GPS kind of fun smartphones. So we had the paper map, and she was the navigator. See where I made a mistake? Yeah, that part will be edited for 10:30. So she has the map, and we're going to be heading on. And if you remember the old foldable maps, some of you may still use them. The little key, and it had the roads. The bigger, more busier the highway, the fatter it was, and the skinnier the road got, the smaller it got. So there was this tiny little black road that was in the key, and that's what we wanted to be on. And it went all along the coast. Imagine first time in Ireland and driving along the sea coast. That's what we envisioned. And as we left Dublin, we're trying to get down to this road, but there was a railroad line raised on a berm, probably, 4 to 6 feet at times in height. So we kept trying to find a spot where we'd either could get over or under, and yet every time I thought I'd find the crossover point, there was the railroad line. Desperately trying to find this little black road. Until the navigator finally looks at the legend and says, by the way, do you know what little black line means? Railroad. Yes, indeed, there are times in life we can't seem to get where we want to go. We can't seem to do the things we want to do. We find ourselves lost, confused, wondering. When Jesus is asked this question about were they worse sinners than others, I mean, how their lives ended, was it God's punishment? Jesus reminds us that we all are sinners in need of repenting, need of God's guidance in our lives. The gardener in the parable, the great gardener, the first gardener, God, who planted and created all things, says there is hope, because I will tend to you. I will sow my word into your lives and give you hope and time. Indeed, our lives, we find ourselves at odds with the directions we should be going. We find ourselves lost, confused as to where and what we should be doing. And Jesus reminds us, the great gardener continues to sow his word into our lives, to give us hope, to give us chance to turn and follow his direction. Amen.